Hi, everyone. You found us. What a weekend, right? Contemplating 39. No one calls him 39. They call him Peanut Farmer. They call him everything else. He was the 39th president. You can't call him President Carter. You could. Former president is more correct, but 39 encapsulates everything. You know, the honor you want to give him. It gives you the number. He was the 39th president. You know, maybe you're a numerologist and that means something to you. Oh, he's 39? He's the Jack Benny president. No, I was affected by Carter, and I think a lot of us were just waiting. You know, it's ever since he announced that he was going to go into hospice, we were just waiting for this time where we could just let it out and mourn Jimmy Carter. And finally, it happened. We got the word, and you know, I just went over all my Jimmy Carter memories. I mean, not just being a kid. Well, I was in college at the time. I remember there was a bunch of guys in college who really were pushing hard for Carter. And they were saying, Carter's the guy. He's going to be the next guy. And a lot of people were reluctant to say, yeah, Carter. But ultimately, Carter did prevail. I mean, I forget who else was out there. But, you know, this is like post-Nixon. And we're Americans, especially young ones, were looking, who's the next leader? And I don't know if everyone was 100% convinced that Carter was the one. But Carter did become, like around, you know, late 70s, he became the guy. But this is the thing about Jimmy Carter. It wasn't until after he left. I mean, he was really, I don't want to say mistreated, but I think he was misunderstood. And people didn't know what kind of person was in the White House. They gave him one term. And wouldn't you know that he really did most of the great things that he will be remembered for after he left. I mean, the Nobel, right? That came after. All that was after. And one of the news orgs put it this way, that Jimmy Carter understood the long game. Long game, long life, long impact. And that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of mourning the loss of Carter today, because he's that connection to a bipartisan sort of effort. I mean, there are bipartisan efforts now, you know, the Never Trumpers, they weren't as successful. But I think with Carter, he represented what it meant to be on the same team, you know. And I got this when I was watching CNN had Wolf Blitzer doing a thing on Carter, and he went over his bio. It's interesting, you know, he was in the Navy and all that. I found it more interesting that his father was a segregationist. And Carter, of course, was this man of the New South, right? He was going to bring the country together in a good Christian way, right? That's what Carter represents. And that's why when we talk about Carter today, you got to talk about Sunday school, because that was his access. That was the way he gave access to the public later in life. I mean, you know, you could have, if you had a press pass and could see him in Atlanta. He hung out, though, in Plains, Georgia. You had to go to Plains to see him. I mean, to really see him, where you could say, yeah, I saw Jimmy Carter. And I remember I had family. I know it sounds far-fetched, but I had family, a Filipino connection in Plains or nearby. And when, we were going to go visit, there was no question. We're going there. Oh, that's not far from Plains. We're going to see Jimmy Carter. We're going to go see Jimmy Carter. And this was the time when he was teaching Sunday school. So I wrote a column about going to Sunday school with Jimmy Carter. And I'll tell you, you learn about a person when you listen to their Sunday school lecture. And I wrote about it in the column when I was there, 2016. And then I had to go over my notes and then write a version yesterday, thinking about Carter, thinking about what that meant, thinking about what that was. And you could read it in all my outlets. Philippines, on the web. I'll put it on Substack at some point and Patreon. But that was great to see Rosalind and Jimmy together, and everyone was so protective of Carter when I was there. But he was ready to engage. He was great, Jimmy Carter. He wanted to be with the people. He acted like he'd never seen a Filipino before. No, he'd seen a Filipino. There just weren't any Filipinos there. There were Asians there. There were other Asians. There was a Vietnamese family there. My family was there. And we talked. I talked to the Vietnamese family. But the high point was we were there for Carter because Carter meant something. Carter brought us together. And this is the thing about being the son of the New South, bringing the country together. You want to talk about making America great again? Jimmy Carter knew how to make America great again. He had the vision. He had the vision of being on the same team. This other guy, he's got no team sense. This other guy. And frankly, I just kind of figured, I think that's a thing that, separates, Carter from all the others, right? Carter, you can imagine teaching Sunday school. This new guy, the president-elect who's been there before, can you imagine the bronzed one giving a Sunday school lesson? I mean, maybe then. They're eating cats, they're eating dogs. I mean, they're eating Noah's Ark. I don't know. Good people on both sides. That's kind of biblical, right? That's, as my friend John pointed out, said, both are good people on both sides. That's kind of a do unto others thing, right? But there I was. I feel blessed that I had a Sunday school lesson with President Carter. It happened to be on September 11th, 2016. And I'm saddened because, Carter at age 100 didn't make it to the new year, nor the presidential inaugural. But my guess is the thought of a second Trump presidency may have been too much for him to bear. A convicted felon in the White House. And you saw today the $5 million judgment against him for sexual assault was upheld. Trump appealed. The appeals court said, no, you owe $5 million to E. Jean Carroll. Upheld today. So we're going to have a president there with a $5 million judgment on sexual assault. Isn't that wonderful in the United States? Oh, Jimmy Carter. He was rolling in his grave before he got to the grave. That's how grave it is. And we know who Carter voted for because he said, I want to live long enough to cast my vote for we know who. And it wasn't for Trump. unless Trump was the one in a pantsuit. So I've always been a big Carter fan, and so when the news of his passing came, it brought me back to my Happy Jimmy Carter place. And I do have a Happy Jimmy Carter place. Like I said, it's about almost 200 miles away from Atlanta. You go into Atlanta and then you just drive. You drive south and west, and you want to know what the deep south is, you go south and west and you say, wow, where am I? And, I was in Albany, not Albany, California near Berkeley, but Albany, Georgia, home of Ray Charles. And they got a big Ray Charles sculpture there. It's fascinating. They got Georgia on My Mind playing like 24 hours a day. It's for visitors, tourists like me. I had family there, so I'm visiting Albany, Georgia. And then what do we do for fun? Sunday school with Jimmy Carter, of course. And that's why I found myself to be the only full-blooded Filipino in the room at the Maranatha Baptist Church, the spiritual home base for the esteemed number 39. I think it's a good thing to call these guys by their numbers. Number 39, you see them with the jersey. You got the same team idea going, So, I mean, we know who 45 is. 45. We know who 44 is. 46 is, well, we know 47 is 45 also. God. Oh, well. But, so I was there for a Sunday school lesson that was coincidentally the 15th anniversary of 9/11. And Carter had just made headlines like a year ago earlier when he disclosed he had both brain and liver cancer. And it was thought he just had 2 or 3 weeks to live. That was in 2015. Here we are, 9 years later. He was in hospice for most of last year. I don't know if he did anything with his diet, but I remember in 2015 when he said he had brain and liver cancer, they thought, oh, he wasn't going to last. He lasted. Once again, Carter, long game, long view, long life, playing that long game. And everyone's always underestimating Jimmy Carter. And we're learning our lesson as we go through all the things that Jimmy Carter did, all the bios that are out now, media, what he did in public health, what he did. I mean, everyone called about, the habitat story, building homes. Jimmy Carter was a humanitarian. He's the kind of guy you want to be president. The nice guy president, not the mean guy president, the nice guy president. So when I saw Carter in 2016, he was spry, he was quick-witted, he was kind. Though he did tell a joke about an Asian American. Because when I was there, he'd just come back from San Francisco. He had attended what he called supper with wealthy tech giants, including the widow of Steve Jobs, Lorene Jobs, as well as the first Asian American power couple of the world, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan. And Carter said of Chan, she's Chinese. And the audience, which is like 99.8% white, really laughed at that. Especially when Carter said the Facebook couple planned to give away 99% of their $50 billion fortune to charity. Carter joked, only gives them $500 million for personal expenses. They got a big laugh. I'm guessing Jimmy Carter wouldn't have been so pleased at the tech community's capitulation to Trump. Zuckerberg and other tech giants each have given $1 million to support January's inaugural. But all that tech stuff, all that tech gossip, just a warm up. for the Sunday school talk. The former president wore a bolo string tie anchored by an 8-stone turquoise clasp that dangled below the neck as he began the lesson on the subject of grief and the death of his 28-year-old grandson. He drew from scripture on that particular day a passage on the persecution of the Thessalonians. And Carter said such moments were simply tests of one's faith, endurance, and hope. He said overcoming all that was a matter of self-confidence and relying on our God-given talents, but that it was difficult in all phases of life. We lack inspiration. We lack the idealism to set our goals high, Carter said. We've been satisfied with mediocrity, and I include myself. Oh, such humility. People want an average life instead of aspiring to, Carter said, outstanding or superb or brilliant or exceptional, and that is a problem we have. Carter said, we set our goals too low, we're complacent, we're satisfied with where we are. Is that why we got Donald Trump a second time? And then Carter applied the lesson to the historic day of 9/11. He said, we're diminished as a country and our goals for our nation's future are set too low. Carter said, quote, I'm afraid that our country and its effect on people in other nations has suffered from the aftermath of 9/11. Carter didn't want to brag, but he said his goal for the country was always to be, quote, superb and be a country that promoted peace and human rights. While I was in office, we never dropped a bomb, lost a missile, or fired a bullet. Too much has changed, he said. Since 9/11, Carter said, we pretty much abandoned our commitment to human rights as we reacted to terrorism. He lamented that Afghanistan had become the longest war in American history, a direct outcome of 9/11, as well as the invasion of Iraq, which Carter called unnecessary. And mind you, this is all, I'm taking notes, right? Jimmy Carter's talking. Jimmy Carter's teaching Sunday school. I'm going through my notes. So Carter, a peacenik, right? I don't know if I would have called him that in the 70s when they were trying to bring him around to all the colleges. The 70s, and say, hey, here's the next president. Here's the Democratic hope. Carter, whose administration took us out of an energy crisis, also pointed out how the U.S. is still suffering from a financial crisis that has exposed a deep inequality that has divided us as a people. And this he said in 2016. This was in the Hillary Clinton race against Trump. Said Carter, we've become distrustful of people who are different from us. We used to be proud, a proud, heterogeneous nation. And now we are fearful. And we've become poorer as a country. Wow. Here's a guy who knew. He knew what was happening to our democracy. We've become distrustful of people who are different from us, Carter said. We used to be a proud, heterogeneous nation, and now we are fearful and we've become poorer as a country. Compare that with xenophobia, the xenophobia of Trump. Carter had a better vision of America. But now look at what America has chosen for itself in 2024. Carter won a Nobel Peace Prize in 2002. The fact that belies how many conservatives see his efforts to find a peace in the Middle East as anti-Semitic. Jimmy Carter's sense of America and the world requires open minds to come together. And too often these days, that seems near impossible. Carter knew how to make America great again. When I was president, Carter said, I got as much support from Republicans in the Senate and House as I did among Democrats. Now, if you're a Republican, you don't speak to Democrats or support a Democratic president or vice versa. And many Americans are embarrassed by the presidential election this year. He was talking in 2016, remember? And look at how that has only grown exponentially. That disgust, that embarrassment. But people still voted. People still made their choice. Said Carter, we've had a deterioration in the quality of life and the relationship between people that now has become almost acceptable, said Carter, who added, the nation had changed so much it would be near impossible for the current Republican and Democratic candidates to declare their top priority to live in peace or to promote human rights. That was my inaugural speech. I only spoke 15 minutes, Carter said, noting that his vision wasn't just his, but shared by the American people who had idealism and high standards and moral values, and now we've lost that. As I said, I can't imagine Trump teaching Sunday school. But Carter, we will miss in the new year. Carter's calming wisdom would be preferable to the chaos that 49.8% of the voters chose last November. 49.8%. It's hard to believe that the majority of voters, the majority beating 49.8, rejected what's to come in 2025. But that 49.8 who voted for Trump wins out. And now, with Carter's death, we all mourn. The column I wrote based on my visit to Plains, Georgia. Man, I love Plains. You know, I went there, and you got to hit the gift shop, right? I love the gift shop. There are all these little tchotchkes, you know, political buttons and Carter this, and back then there were like Hillary Clinton buttons. I loved being there. And then you get like a peanut butter ice cream. They sold that. And at the time, in 2016, it was for sale. And I thought, oh, wow, it's not that. I mean, it doesn't even cost as much as a modest California house. I could buy this. I could set up shop. I could sell the tchotchkes in Plains, and you get off the train in Plains, and you can say the rain in Plains lies mostly where the Filipino sells peanut butter ice cream. And I thought, oh, this could be kind of a cool gig. I could write from here, from the Plains train stop, you know, overlooking Billy Carter's gas station. Of course, I got a Billy Beard keychain while I was there. So I was really into it. I thought, yeah, I can sit here on the porch all day at the Carter gift shop, and I could eat boiled peanuts. Eat them whole. I can eat boiled peanuts and like wave. Yeah. President, I mean, I remember I came back from that visit, and, you know, I live in nut country in California. But I told my almond friends, hey, look, you guys are almond guys, but do you know about peanuts? Let me tell you about peanuts. I had the Jimmy Carter peanut bug. Really, really, really hard. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what you get when you're like 170 miles away from Atlanta. I mean, it's a long way. You drive into Atlanta, or you fly into Atlanta, and then you just drive to the south and west. You even pass Buster Posey's house. Well, it's sort of near. Buster Posey's from Lee. That it's way the heck out. Like I said, you're a stone's throw from, you know, you're in Dixie. You're in Dixie. You're in the Deep South. But I felt comfortable in Plains. I thought, oh, is this my fate? Is this my fate to sell tchotchkes in the Plains, Georgia gift shop of Jimmy Carter, just like a stone's throw from the train stop? I thought about it. I don't know. And now Jimmy Carter really represented here. Like I mentioned this before. I saw this on the CNN bio, where they talk about Jimmy Carter's dad. His dad was a segregationist. Jimmy Carter was not a segregationist. He represented the New South. He represented what America wanted to be, what modern America wanted to be. I mean, of course, it was all just black and white, right? He didn't know what a Filipino was. Asians? What were Asians? I mean, there was some Asians in the Sunday school lecture. And now there's a lot of Asians in Atlanta. You know, the Koreans are strong there. The Vietnamese are strong. But back in 2016, like I said, or actually, you know, when his career began, he was bucking the segregationist trend. The world was black and white. And look at what happened. We need Jimmy Carter more than ever. Jimmy Carter knew we were on the same team. That's why I like to give these guys numbers, because if you got numbers like, here's 39, Trump is 45 and 47. He gets 2 jerseys. Biden's 46. I mean, it's kind of cool, you know. Then you get your program, your U.S. presidential program, because that way you can tell the presidents apart. I mean, it's kind of, you see them wearing the jersey, United States of America. They got the number in the back. The message is clear. We're on the same team. Stop trying to make us or put us in opposing teams. Stop asking us to, you know, dividing us up into shirts and skins. Jimmy Carter. So now we'll go through a period where we think about Carter. I mean, and I'm glad it's happening, because when the news came out that he was in hospice, I know people were getting ready. 60 Minutes was on last night. They had a minute for Carter at the end. You know that was ready. And you knew that most of that minute was ready, except for the 15 seconds where Leslie Zoll says, you know, Jimmy Carter has passed. And this is the way it is in the news business. You are ready with your obit, sometimes for years, which is why sometimes there's a lot of mistakes. And sometimes this is why a lot of people think people are dead already, because people haven't died, but they've got the obit ready, and someone leaks out the obit and says, oh, they're dead, they're not dead. And then you got to go to that app, dead or not dead, or whatever, alive, not alive. But this is the trick in the news business. Who is ready? Who is prepared? The Atlanta Journal-Constitution, I think, was the first to put it out. They got the first word. I heard it on the New York Times in the afternoon on my email. But then started the clock on how we remember the 39th president. And I just don't think people realize how great a person he really was. I think everyone will acknowledge he's a nice guy. I think as we get into President 47, we'll realize how much we underestimated how important being a nice guy is. It's very important. Because now we're at a time when the president sets a tone, right? I was reading in the news about how on airplanes people are squatting on seats on the airplane. It's not their seat, that they're booked into seat 23C, but they want to sit up in the plane, so they sit down at 12C, and they say, "This is mine," and they say, "No, this is mine. I got the boarding pass. Go to your own seat." And they say, "No, this is mine. I'm squatting." And how do we have squatters on airliners? How can we have? We only have that because we have a guy who's president who says he doesn't believe in the peaceful transfer of power, unless he's winning. He doesn't believe in any of that. He believes, hey, whatever you can get away with, that's fine in America. That shouldn't be the thing. That shouldn't be the way, but it is. That's why today's news at soon to be 47 has lost his appeal on the sexual assault charges and the $5 million judgment against him for E. Jean Carroll, the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. That's good news for the rule of law. That's good news for the way things are supposed to work. But it doesn't stop the next inaugural of 47. It's happening. And as I said in my column, boy, will we miss Jimmy Carter. Not that anyone gave him any credit, not that anyone gave him a lot of thought, but I know some of us did. Those of us who sat in on his Sunday school lessons, certainly. So that's the big thing today. Football was another big. I was watching football yesterday. Boy, that Jaden Daniels, is that the guy's name? Man, the Washington Commanders. I'm glad, because they got rid of the bad owner, they got rid of the bad name, and now the Commanders are they're in the playoffs. But two young quarterbacks, the Commanders quarterback, and then Michael Penix of Atlanta. He's going to be great. And, as a 49er fan, I'm predisposed to like Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, who was picked last in the draft overall, next to all these other top rookie quarterbacks. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I think Brock Purdy had one good year. I think he's okay, but he's not like the Commanders quarterback. He's not like even Michael Penix of Atlanta. A lot of good quarterbacks. Anyway, so a lot of good sports here in the Bay Area. The 49ers are playing tonight. You got the Warriors. A lot of things to take our minds off of things, but keep thinking about Jimmy Carter. Keep thinking about what could be, the kind of people we should have leading America. Because where are those people? I don't know. I mentioned in my column that 49.8% of the voters chose Donald Trump. I mean, make no mistake, it wasn't a mandate. It was a slim plurality, not a majority. The majority was take Harris's 48.3 or whatever that was, 48.5, something like that. Take the 1.7 who voted for other people. That is the majority. The majority of people did not want Donald Trump. And yet, because of the Electoral College, the plurality goes to Trump, 49.8%. And now we all mourn. We all mourn the death of former president. I guess that's accurate. If you saw him in person, you'd say Mr. President. You'd still call him Mr. President. But I guess formally he is former president Jimmy Carter. 39. Number 39. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Back again tomorrow. Oh, let me tell you about some things. Let me swish out. I'm going to be in a play January 30th to February 16th. It's called The Shine Challenge 2025. If you're a regular listener, you know I've talked about the Shine Challenge 2024, which was online. We did that online last year. Well, now playwright Ishmael Reed is taking the play off Broadway to the Theater for the New City, January 30th to February 16th, under the direction of Rome Neal. And in the Shine Challenge, Ishmael Reed takes the story about Shine, a black man who survives the Titanic sinking, and expands it into a courtroom drama. Yeah. And it originates from 35 lines written down by Langston Hughes. And it was part of the oral tradition of African American history. And now Ishmael Reed, took those 35 lines and made it into a whole drama that's kind of absurdist in its outlook. And it's all about getting to the bottom of, why did the Titanic sink? Who sunk the Titanic? Could it have been the acts of a black man sinking this image of white superiority, the Titanic? Playwright Ishmael Reed explores. Should be an interesting thing for Black History Month. If you got nothing to do, you're going to be in New York, Theater for the New City. Check out their website, theaterforthenewcity.org, January 30th through February 16th. Tickets they're affordable. We're just talking about the sinking of the Titanic. And, you know, you can see me live with my fake mustache. Here it is here. Live with my fake mustache. I'll be there. So that's the first thing. Tomorrow on New Year's Eve, I'm appearing online. I'll have some news on that. Go to my Patreon site, patreon.com/Emil Amok, and find out where I'll be telling a story online tomorrow. I know it's a Zoom thing. If you send me, I think it's free. If you go to patreon.com/Emil Amok, I'll put the details there. And as a tease, tomorrow we'll talk about Matt Lauer. Yeah, have you wondered about Matt Lauer? What he's doing? Not well. We'll talk tomorrow. It involves sheep. So suddenly you say, ooh, can't be good. Can't be. Well, it's interesting. All right. Get a sense of laughter yoga. Check me out on patreon.com/Emil Amok. At the end of my last Emil Amok 814, I think it is, I do a little laughter yoga with Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez. And we end this as we end most of our programs with a little loving kindness meditation, an awareness of the moment, where we are, who we are, right here with you. Loving kindness, because we send out the love and it comes back twofold. Oh, yeah. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal.